Okay, so we have 5 players on the field. You are good to go for another 6. Yeah. So who else would you include in your starting 11?
Yeah, definitely the data steward and the process owner, process responsible, process owner and data steward. Right. Okay. So that these two guys, they are really the the two number 10 somehow, right? So you need to imagine a kind of a team with like two genius players, one on the left, one on the right. It doesn't matter, and basically they connect the dots and they are really the creators of the game, right? So these are the ones that are really the key, and they have a huge multiplier in their hands on the quality that we deliver. So if I have a project on which I have the right data stewards, sometimes there will be more than one, right? And the process owner who is engaged and wants to make things happen. I mean, this is fantastic. Actually, change it for process responsible because process owner has a bit of a different.
Okay. Yeah, let's change it.
Yeah.
But would you still consider a process owner as?
So process owner, I would put him more, but maybe it's the next question, right? In the referee role as well, because here it's important at the end that everyone was the owner. So for me, owner means being accountable, right? Not responsible, but accountable means that it's also someone who has to create the adherence and the discipline to follow. So if we design a brand new process, which is very rationalized, with high standardization, high automation, and all the roles are defined and so on. I mean, at the end, you need an authority to say, okay, now we work that way. We work that way, and this is, to my view, exactly that role owner.
So the process owner, so it's about accountability and making sure that the concepts are also established, rolled out, and by them monitored in a way.
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. Nice. Who else?
So who else? I mean, So the data product owner definitely is also a role. So that would be maybe the second forward, the one which is like 9.5. So next to the data product implementation responsible. Yeah. So
full striker.
So this one is defining basically what we will produce in terms of what finally how the information will be accessible, right? So what we call information models, what we call reports, dashboards. This has to be defined, and this has to be it's again a key role to really score, because if it's not smartly defined, even if the very much forward, right, is doing a great job, the goal will not come, right? Because no one will, the product will be there, but people will say, okay, what, right? What do I do with that? It looks nice, but it's useless. So the data product owner make it relevant, right? Make it relevant and make it really will secure its popularity.
Okay. I think we are now on 8 or 9, so you have 1 or 2 more, yeah?
Yeah, so basically the IT application leads are, of course, an important role as well, right? I mean, I talk a lot about process and data and information, but it doesn't mean that I have not recognition, right, for the role of IT in an organization like this, right? Because they ultimately bridge it to the physical world, right? And this is really, really important as well. So here they bring knowledge, right? Because they have a view on how processes are reflected into applications. They can connect dots, as I mentioned before, between the physical data and the conceptual data, which is something extremely complex, right? So their knowledge is extremely valuable. So here, together with under the coordination of the IT enterprise architect, they also contribute a lot, right, to make things implementing. So maybe just also next to the IT enterprise architect, maybe a little bit more to the front, because also for them, they get a lot of visibility, and they also secure basically implementation, right? When it comes to really reflecting processes into operational applications.
I changed now the position of the governance manager and data architect. Would you agree, because the architect has also to work closely, because you mentioned just the physical data model, yeah? So there's obviously a handover or a pass between the role and the data architect.
I mean, this is where it's difficult, right? To put it in 2 dimensions starts to be a bit challenging, right? I would still put the data governance manager more to the center, to be honest. And the data, if I have to choose between both, right? Because both of them are in the middle of a network. That's clear, right? But the data governance manager, he should have the view on all the roles which cover the entire data management, right? He's the one, let's say, leading the network, right? So so I would make actually quite a nice so process manager a bit at the libero and also in the back, right? The data governance manager in the middle, data architect on the left. Why not? IT application lead. So maybe IT enterprise architect next to the
Where?
just up instead of the IT application lead, and then the IT application lead can move to the right. Yes. Which also makes sense, because a part of the part which is related to what you call data product, right? Just format it, we call it analytics product. Basically the 4 roles here are the roles that we internalize into the digital transformation office, right? And these 3 roles that we have then as midfielder, or 4 roles actually, including the data product owner, they are the ones that basically belong to every function. Right? Of course, IT usually will be centralized, not necessarily, in Met it's not necessarily the case, but they will be outside of it, right?
Nice. 1 player.
Yes, to make a good choice now.
You have to make a good choice, Let's zoom in again.
So, I mean, if there is 1 player... Sorry? I mean, I cannot not... I mean, it's difficult, honestly, to choose 1 out of that, because they are all very important. But I would say the project manager. I mean, without project managing, there is no transformation.
Okay, that's the first one.
The project manager, I don't know where is. Let's try and see where he should be on the pitch. But the project manager is the one definitely to prop all this something. So maybe he's the coach. But it's not really the coach, because this entire network, it's actually more my job to be the coach, to my view. But the project manager is the one. So it's a bit of a strange setup for winning the European Cup, but I think it could be like this. Yes.
Here in the middle.
Yes. That makes totally sense. Yes, actually, that makes totally sense, because we have, let's say, the functions, right, of managing data, managing IT, managing processes. Then they are leveraged by the project manager, which is bringing basically their functional knowledge into the project, where as a consequence, we get the data steward to define the data, we get the process responsible to define the process, the IT application leads to basically secure that the implementation can be done, and the data product owner to write down the requirements of the data product, and the data product implementation responsible to implement it. So I think with this team, which has no goalkeeper, that's still kind of
Would you? I mean, I like the roles and how you put them on the pitch and everything. And yes, I agree. It's hard to choose from all the roles. Now, looking at the formation, would you say this is more offensive setup? Referring now to also a more offensive strategy implementation in a way, or would you say it's more defensive, or is it both?
I think it's rather a bit more offensive, because the idea is to transform, right? Is to take, is not to only back up the whole process, right? So it's more Spain than France.
Okay, it's more Spain than France. Okay. Okay. Nice. One question I have to the roles, which I personally thought you would place in here, is the data domain owner. It's not here, right? Yeah.
Yes, because for me, the data domain owner, and it's now based also on my reality, right? Is going to play a major role after we have won basically the qualification rounds and so on, right? So this is where, in that case, I would probably put him together with the process owner, but not only as kind of managing the commitments to the standard, even if something also important, but really securing the network when it comes to data, right? So making sure the data stewards are living up to their roles, the data definition owners, right? That's important. And this is a bit my dream, but I'm not yet there, to build also roadmaps per data domain, right? So to have also projects, initiatives, which are driven by the fact to enhance the data, right? But at the moment, the data centricity and the focus on data is not there yet, that we can just, define roadmap per data domains.
Okay. So, so it's a journey again, and it depends on the maturity also of the company in all these,
But I have data domain owners. But they don't play
in the starting 11.
Exactly.
There would be problem.
Exactly. They are already nominated, most of them, but at the moment their involvement remains relatively low. They are more, let's say, part of the staff, the technical staff, to say, hey, the data steward here got injured. We didn't see him moving for the last 10 days. He must have a problem. And then, this is more the way we do it.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. Is there any role now? I mean, there were plenty of roles, but it's not a complete list. But would you say there is any important role missing which you would like to have, on the pitch, So who's maybe your Ronaldo or your Neuer in a way also, if we think about significance, importance for the game?
I think we have a pretty good representation. I mean, if I think about my how we work today, the core roles in my teams, and the role in that we try to really socialize in the company, I think it's a good representation. Of course, the one that I didn't mention is the data quality manager. Also because, again, this role exists. This role is there, this role is active. But as a starting 11, also there, right? I would be more the player that I would bring at the 60 minutes, right? Because you need to have some work done first by the data governance manager, the data architect, right? This is the foundation to then be able to develop more the data quality. Okay.
So question 5, if we think about winning matches or even titles, so now having this, you mentioned maturity level, So would you say this formation can get you immediately to a title, or is it a let's say formation for a transition, which maybe gets you to a semi-final or something,
Exactly. Probably not even that far, right? Because we mentioned it, right? It will be important also the other roles. Another role, for instance, because we mentioned data product implementation responsible. Obviously, if you think like this, and unfortunately I know that some tend to do that, if you think just in terms of implementation, this will not be a very long shot, right? Because whenever you start to democratize information, and it's clearly our ambition, then you need to be prepared to have the support, right? When you show in a single point of truth a lot of information from the company, this means that your data product team, as to call it like this, for us it's the BI team, right? Will get tons of questions, tons of support cases, right? If you're not ready to handle that, you are not going to make it, right? You are going to fail at a later point in time, right? You will build something, but you cannot maintain it. You need the customer service for that, right? And the same on the same area, right? There is also the engineering part. Today, through our data lakehouse, we are enabling very, very critical processes. If we are not able to run it in a smooth manner, then the users will come and will leave because they need something also reliable. right? So this team needs also to be solid, but on all fields, right? Not only on the defense, also more on the forwards. You need also to be reliable there.
Great. So very, very insightful and interesting. Thanks a lot now to the head coach, Thomas Bode. Yeah, we go back to our sitting position and continue the conversation over there. So Thomas, now back on the sitting position, leaving the football field to the side. But if we still think about maybe roles, yeah, and about the fact that these roles need to interact with each other, communication is key. What is, I would say, what is a topic, yeah, we call it a topic or capability that should support the communication amongst these roles, yeah, and also beyond these roles, anyone at the company? What comes there immediately to your mind?
Yeah, two things,
Yeah.
very simple. So first, again, these things happen through this roadmap, through the initiatives, right?
Yeah.
So this is backed up by project management. This is why project management is so important. So we define a full project management methodology, which is basically embedding these roles and their contribution.
Yeah.
So the idea is that the project manager, by following the project methodology, is kind of giving the stage to all these roles and securing that they interact together, right? That's one. That's the theory, and also the practice. But in the practice as well, you need to be there, right? You need to be there, me and all my team members, and try to back it up. And each time that the ball is falling in between, bringing it up, and that's really the key. You need to be versatile and to try to to identify where the issues are, because for all these contributors, this is rather new, right? And it's not necessarily understood. It doesn't necessarily come in their mind as what they should do, right? So all these things you need to explain, you need sometimes to constrain, you need sometimes to negotiate, and and all this is the next to it. But if you want people to follow as well, you need to have an approach which is lean and which is understandable, or let's say which is solid, right? Which is that if they will see that, okay, we follow the path. Maybe at the beginning we don't fully understand, but the path is marked. And it leads me somewhere. And if it led me somewhere the first time, I will trust to go again to the same path. And then the second time, I will even understand why the path is like this, right? So this is, that's the important thing.
Yeah. So in sense of creating, and I think again about football, it's about, like having the fluent exchange, and not really realizing, oh, this is now a process topic, this is a data topic, and so on. So people come naturally into acting in their responsibilities. So
it's a good analogy again, because here what we see, if we compare to the football pitch, is that people understand pretty fast and pretty well the value of the forwards and the midfielders, right? So yes, they want to have some reports, dashboards, AI products, and basically for that they rely on the capacity of the people there. But they don't see basically the dependencies, right? So the problem is that everything is layered, right? And then this is what I need, but to be able to have my car driving 250, I need someone who has prepared the highway, right? And this is basically what is more difficult to bring, and this is why, again, connecting the dots, and this is also why it's interesting to have these functions together, because we can leverage the credibility and the glory, let's say, of ones to the benefits of the other as well, right? And then also bring, let's say, also more lights to data management, to process management, for instance.
Communication is key on the pitch and within the organization. I think here on or about metadata, collecting data about data and establishing, in that sense, a communication within the company. Would you say that metadata is also here a very important vehicle to align then between different roles and ensure that there's a consistency?
Totally. I mean, if you again start from the pitch, right? We have put roles, but these roles are not people, right? That's very important. There are people being assigned to these roles, but it's a very, very broad community. So just that, to know what these roles mean, because also for people, right, when you come to all these terminologies, it doesn't immediately connect to something concrete, right? So you just need to tell what it is, and you need to tell who is owning it. And I don't know how many data stewards today we have, but probably around 50 or 60, and it will keep growing, right? How many analytics product definition owners we have? At the moment, maybe only few, but it will also grow. So if you don't manage this data, right? So this is the metadata, right? You will get it lost, right? And then it's again, another source of inefficiency, of potential confusion, and so on. So this is where metadata is extremely important. And what I like here is that we try to connect the dots between the metadata of the data. Right. So definition of the data, the roles of the data, and so on. Also of the IT applications, also of the data products, also of the process, also of the project. So what we consider as the enablers of the 5 enablers of the digital transformation, we manage the metadata together, and we really try to connect the dots. Right. So when we define a process, we use the list of IT applications that we have defined in our IT application catalogs. Right. So this is the key enabler, and for me, this is also what makes the job future-proof. Because if I look today at the trends and what might become the role of a data engineer, a data scientist, a BI manager, I think a lot of it will be actually not anymore into building pipelines or designing reports, because that part is getting faster and faster to be replaced and automated, right? But to capture the requirements in a proper way, meaning that's the metadata of my data product, right? That should match. And then being able to prompt it, that's basically the part of intelligence, which to my view is far, far away from being replaced by the AI, right? That's the difficult part. But to write a Python piece of code, to just, when you know exactly that you want to have this data from here to here, today there is not so much value to write it yourself instead of just asking ChatGPT to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. I like that very much, and it really underpins the importance, again, of communication and collecting or ensuring there's a agreed understanding, on all these terminologies that are applied in the different fields. What is a good time to think about metadata and introducing it to the company?
So of course, at Swarovski, with the background that we had, we started at a certain point in time. So we had already started to work on data analytics and so on, and then it came. But it was at the very beginning of data management. And at Met, it was for me the first.
Okay, you really started it straight from the beginning.
Day one, literally day one, starting to build on that. That is really key, because this is the piece of knowledge, and this is where all this knowledge about these enablers, that I mentioned before, is coming together. So this is very important. Now I understand also what you mean when you talk about communication, is that I also am a strong believer that the success of a group of individuals, now we talk about people in companies, of course, but even societies, has a close relationship to the language. And I think this is absolutely something which is it's very hard, of course, to value the ROI on these things, but there is a very strong value of having also a very accurate and commonly understood language, right? This is, again, this facilitates the entire communication. And this is where this metadata management should be the repository, where basically the terms that we are using in a company are also available for everyone, right? So this is also a key thing. The metadata management should be something that is accessible to everyone. And this is here where we are now also at the turning point. After 2 years, we start to have, in certain domains, not in all domains, but in certain domains, enough to be able now to promote it. And in the next very coming months, we are going to push on that and to say, hey, look, in this area, right, that you can relate to this data domain, you can relate quite easily to processes and so on, right? It's not one-to-one, but it comes close. You have all this information which is available, right? Yeah. So go and search for it, and you will find even more than you think, right? Okay. And then people can start leveraging that. And again, having connected the different enablers, as we mentioned, this is then becoming powerful because people might start from the report, right? That they have in front of their eyes and say, oh, there is this metrics, but how do they calculate it in there, right? And then he's going to the report in the metadata management. The report is referring to the data. So he's going to the data catalog where the metric is, and basically you can find it. And actually, if we manage to fully fledge it, right, you can even see from the data which are used for the computation of the metrics, from which process they are created, in which IT application and so on. So you see that this huge network of all these enablers, which is always implicit, become explicit. And that is, to my view, the game changer. And this is one of the most motivating factor because I want to see that happening, because I truly have the deep conviction this is possible to make it happen. And this is what I want to see happening.
Again, I'm fascinated by your enthusiasm about the topic. So I think it's brilliant. You mentioned enough to promote. I would like to understand, again, based on your experience and opinion, what is enough? Because it's always from my experience, I see a lot of good initiatives that miss the chance to speak about what they have achieved. So they miss the point where they can actually promote the achievements and so on. So what would you say that, or in your example, what was there the point or the level that you have achieved to say this is now good enough, to promote and to advocate, or create maybe there also another wave of willingness to support in other domains.
So what we are talking here concretely, just to make sure that it's clear for everyone, right? We talk about bringing people to find and search on the metadata management platform. So to name them, I mean, there is Colibra, there is Informatica, and we are using DataSpot.
Nicely, we have mentioned some names.
Not advertising, just to make it concrete. So basically here, we are already making it available for everyone, right? And if we explain something about someone, we are already going to refer to it, right? So today we have a big topic, which is how we are going to manage the master data for all what we call our counterparties, right? So in the SAP term, business partner, vendors, customers. We have already some parts which are defined. If we refer to them, we are going to point out to this, right? We have some other data objects which are now pretty well defined. We are also going to, for these specific objects, bring people to leverage the platform. The turning point is more, let's say, from a customer journey perspective, right? When do you want people to start Googling your metadata management platform, right? And the point is that here you need to sense a little bit what your users might search and think, okay, if 9 out of 10 there is no results, they will find it disappointing and they will not come again, right? That's the point. If you wait to have the 100%, you will never start and no one will never use it. So it will also not create attraction. So you need to find basically what is the time that, and I think there it's interesting basically to promote one domain, because for instance, now on the finance domain, for instance, we have quite a lot, right? All the chart of accounts, all the cost center, profit centers, and so on. So this is relatively complex reference data with long list and so on. It's important to understand exactly the definition of what is what and so on. So now with that, we are publishing it these days right? And in the coming weeks, for instance, I think we can communicate on that. And when people are preparing their budget, preparing their year-end closing, whatever, then they can really go there and with a good level of confidence to find the answer to their questions. And there we can go. And then we have other domains as well, which are progressing also quite nicely. So this is my approach, right? So today we are using it because we show the relationship. There is a lot of information for one specific object. And now the search engine part of it, right? Or the search engine user experience, this is now the time to start promoting it. With maybe still some, boundaries and say, okay, for this domain you can go, we are confident. Okay, you can find what you look for.
Great. Metadata, so it's not only a topic really for data management or analytics management, it is a general topic. And I like that you again pointed out that you collect metadata for processes as well, for applications as well. So really thinking here holistically, end to end. So if you say beneficial or who is benefiting from a data catalog, it's not only the dedicated data analytics roles, is everyone. So the question is, if you think now on a daily, I like to make it more a little bit tangible for the audience. Sure. So if you think about different roles, which come from a business unit or from an IT team and so on, what would be there some cases where you say, that's the reason why they will be pleased to have a data catalog?
Yes. So, I mean, we can go through a couple of examples, right? Yes. Based on real life. I mean, basically, as I mentioned before, right? You have the full list of your chart of accounts, right? You want to know where to book what, right? You search for it, you have a definition. It's not clear, with the steward, so you can get there, right? You want to create a visualization. You can find out what is my we call it semantic model, right? Yes. On which I will base my information. So I know who has defined the requirements. I know who is maintaining it, right? So it's already a lot of people that can give me support. And I know basically the model by itself, right? So I know exactly which data is in there. And this data is then connected to my data catalog. So then I know exactly also the definition. And I know what is the life cycle, in which process it has been created. Okay, there is a process, there is an issue with the data collection process. So I can go to the process catalog, right? So this is a huge transparency for anyone who wants to, and this is where it's difficult to communicate, right? Because it's so broad that sometimes we are not the best to really talk about it because we want to explain everything, and sometimes it's just too much, right? But basically, it connects the dots, right? So I want to create a visualization. I want to interpret my report. I need to understand the data. I can use that, right? To try to trace it. I want to know specific terminologies just because I read a report and it's just something that is defined by Met. I'm new in the company. I don't understand. Okay, I search for it. Or I'm even there and I just, I don't know everything, right? So this is all these cases. I want to replace one IT application, or I have heard that there is one IT application that someone wants to replace. What is the impact on the entire landscape? Because replacing the one IT application is something important, but I know that the project will be driven also by all the interfaces that I will touch, right? So this is again about transparency, right? It's about visualizing things. So this is really the key for the broad audience, for all users. When it comes to us, it also brings something which is difficult, but which is also extremely valuable, which is discipline, right? What is what, right? There are so many things, especially in the data analytics space, which are not properly defined, right? So when we started to build the catalogs for, we call analytics products, you call it data products, right? Which you were mentioning before, the data products. We need to define what are these data products are. And people usually will easily give you some examples. But to create a full representation, right, which is mutually exclusive, collectively exhaustive, right? This is one of our key motto, right, MISI. This is a very tough job. This is a very difficult job. and then to define for each of them what are the attributes that we want to know. And not something theoretical, not something to produce paper, but for something very operational, which is, okay, now you are my internal customer, so you are my user, you are my data product requirement responsible. You bring me your inputs, I can classify them and immediately leverage them and connect the dots with all the other catalogs, right? So I know which processes you want to support. I understand which data you want to collect, right? And it's not just a multiplication, right, of terms and things. It is all together consistent.
It's connected at the end. It's not just
Exactly.
It's not just like collecting data definitions for the sake of collecting data definitions. Is creating information at the end, insights out of it, and a flow in a way of information that allows then the different stakeholders to improve their activities or capabilities.
Exactly. And the goal of that is that we can build and build without building a backlog of complexity and inefficiency, right? So this is the goal, is that we build a tower which can support more and more floors, right? And not a hut that after the third floor, we'll have to rebuild it again because nothing is fitting, right? The pipes are not at the right scale, the foundations are not strong enough, and so on. So this is really this idea.
Would you go to the extent of making the statement that data is, due to that fact, indeed at the center of any transformation? Or would you say yes, or would you disagree to that? It's like, because there's a lot of, there's a nice buzzword used these days, which is data centricity, or we talk about data-driven transformation, Would you say it is due to this fact that people call it that way, or is it actually putting maybe a little bit too much?
I think when people talk about data centricity, they don't necessarily talk about bring metadata management at the heart, right? Because this is still something which is still a long way, right, to bring it to the front, even within the data analytics community, right? So it's still a long shot to get there. But what is meant, I think, by data centricity is the fact to, and this is what we were calling, and I think I like this terminology, the fact-based decision making, right? To bring people to rely on information to make decisions. And make decisions doesn't mean that I sell or I buy the company, right? It's decisions that all of us make all the time, just to run basically what our processes, our daily operations, our anything which is exceptional as well. So every decision that we make, right? And this is to my view where data centricity is relevant. And at the end, is data centricity about data or about people? So again, to my view, people is at the center of it, right? Because this is really but this is the first and the last in a way, right? Because the whole time you will transform, you will have to strive on change management. That's the key. And data, yes, as a transformational factor, because it is always there, right? So there is nothing without data, right? This is also something that I was sharing at Swarovski to explain why it was important to start managing data. I said, we pay so much attention to our IT, right? At Swarovski, there was a very strong focus on IT, but basically any of the IT applications that you cherish today, they will vanish at one stage, right? Because the company is on a very long run and things. But your data objects, right, that you don't want to talk about, your products, your customers, and so on, they are here from day one, and they will be there from the last day. So this is actually what you should care the most, right, in terms of enablers. So this is the fact that the data is not anymore implicit, but becomes something that we manage actively. Proactively. This is, of course, a very strong signal that digital transformation is happening.
And based on that, would you say that now, if we think again about metadata management and collecting the information, there are different, obviously, different data model levels. We have the conceptual data model, we have the logical,
Or
the physical one. Yeah?
That's how we do it.
Yeah, some call it the conceptual business data model. Yeah, so that people understand what we're referring to. I like the conceptual. Yeah. Would you say that due to what you just said, yeah, your business, which is led by people and how they interact and fulfill activities, capabilities, and so on, that due to this fact, the conceptual data model is probably the most important one?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Because most of the issues are sitting there. The problem is to bring people to realize that it's sitting there. Right?
Okay.
And because this is the root of everything. Right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like your chromosome, right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And basically, if they are not in a good shape, then things will grow, but not the way you want, right?
Yeah.
And you try to sort it out at the top, but the reality is that the issue is at the root. And if the issue is at the root, it will never work properly, right? So this is really, really where we put a lot of emphasis. And for instance, for Met, when it comes to our, for instance, sales operations, it is very complex. What we are selling is very complex. And the fact that it was never conceptualized correctly is a huge challenge. And this is now what we are spending a lot of time, investing a lot of time, and engaging with many stakeholders. And this will bring the foundations to then build things, and then people will recognize these things. The question from a change management perspective, in order to enable the other pieces of the conceptual data model, how to bring people to really understand how important was this work into what they see as a final outcome, right? So they see, okay, now my processes, my sales processes getting standardized. We can implement a new IT application with a customer portal, which is much nicer. I have reports and so on. You will get recognition for that. And the point is how to manage to infuse, that knowledge to make people realize, yes, this work which has been done, this conceptual work at the end, this was actually really, really the fertilizer for all these things. But this is difficult, right? And this is where I honestly don't always succeed, right? Because I love these topics, I love to talk about it, but just simply not everyone is always following me there.
There is no, but that's, I think, that's also to a certain extent the beauty part of it, because there's still this fact of uncertainty, which you need to tackle, and it makes that topic so complex, and I think, by ensuring that you know at the end what you really want to focus on, and forcing it will lead, to the outcome that you want. Because at the end, I would say there is no really a right or wrong, but there are some important topics. And if we now, if I look at the time, I could sit for hours and continue the conversation that we are having. But if we think now maybe in a way of a conclusion, also reflecting the conversation here, what would be the key points to maybe support a rather successful data-driven digital transformation, from your experience?
I think we already mentioned it several times, right? I think the engagement of the stakeholders, getting support is absolutely key, and this needs to be put in balance with the quality, right? With the quality and the fact and the sustainability of what we do. And this is really my approach, is that I'm stretching basically the acceptance for the quality, right? Because I know that at the end, the quality will drive also the acceptance, right? At the point in time. And this is where you want to be. Because what you don't want is to create a lot of enthusiasm and excitement around. For that, you would go definitely for AI and and bring all the fancy topics. And then afterwards, people see, okay, few products have been driven, but in reality, they look fancy in the back. in the front, but in the back it's like people doing things manually and all the things that we promised each other that we will do after, and finally it never comes, right? So on this is not for me a success, right? If we build something, but we at the same time we generate some, can say, value, but at the cost of a huge liability, right? Which is again another complexification of the entire organization, of the entire data model, of the entire process, and so on, right? That's not cutting it. I think today, especially because we are in a fast-moving environment, we need to build a real agility. And for this agility, this is where the topic of access to information and the data of the data, so, right? So the metadata is the enabler. So this is basically my approach, my recommendation. But it's not an easy one, because you need permanently to find the balance, right? You cannot also stand still and say, okay, this is the right way, this is my way, and we only do it like this. Because if you don't get the support, if you don't get the collaboration, you cannot make it, right? But if you are too loose on the foundations, on the role model, on how you structure your metadata, on your own processes, then you will bring to the company, to the rest of the organization, your own problems, and they just don't need them. They just don't need them, because they have a backlog which has to be addressed, and they don't need to add more to this backlog, right? So this is the key.
I agree, and again, and I would add, based on what you told us, and also when I think about our little activity on the football field, is you don't have roles, processes, methods, mechanism, all of these, for the sake of having them. There's really a value attached to these topics, and it takes time until these aspects or enablers fall into the place and connect each other. So you can have the best players on the field, but if they don't speak the same language, don't know how to interact with each other,
which is the starting point, right?
Which is the starting
that's
point.
The point.
Exactly. That's the starting point. So people need to understand that the starting point is really to make sure that you have a common vision, the people, the roles in place, and they buy in the story, and that takes time. And the metadata is there as well as a vehicle to support it, but also at the end a value contribution to the greater good, in a way, for the long-term object.
I mean, you said it, right? It takes time. This is time is an important element here, because we live in the dictatorship of speed, right?
Yes.
And there it becomes very, let's say, dangerous, because basically to be fast, right? To be fast, you need to have, basically, again, if you make the analogy to the cars, right? You need to have the strong cars, the best tires, the best roads, right? And for that, you need a lot of engineering, right? And R&D. And this means to take some step back, right? And to be able to study, to think through, and to then define these, these structures, which will allow you to drive extremely fast. And this is the problem today, is that most of the time you get into kind of dilemma, because there is an issue. Your stakeholders want this issue to be solved, and if you want, basically, if your objective is to gain acceptance, and only to gain acceptance, you will only solve that issue, right? And you will not go at the root, and you will not solve the 10 other issues that you could solve together. But to get there, to get at the root, you need then to collaborate, you need then to take more time, and so on. And this is exactly that part, which is probably the biggest challenge.
Thomas, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Najib.
Your journey from, finance, and I think even before that, to become really someone that drives digital transformation and has proven that it is working, is I think motivative to many. I hope so also to many of the listeners and viewers. And I have one last question to you. Okay, we started with me making a fun fact about the river, and now I ask you a question because we make the analogy to river, yeah, digital river. So why, or can you give us an analogy between a river and a digital transformation? If what would come to your mind if you have to make an analogy?
Yeah, I think the rivers, right, start from very, very small and very, very decentralized, right, to get into a big one, which is ultimately getting to the ocean, right? And this is where this is what we have to emphasize, right? That each and every source needs to be clean, because if not, the pollution will travel down to the river, to the big river, and then to the sea or the ocean, right? So this would be my comparison, right? That even if this little, very, very little bar, as we say in Swiss German, right, running down from the mountain is like very, very small, and no one really cares for it. Still, it should be somehow on the map. It should be somehow understood. What are its risks? What is coming from there?
Great, again, love it. And now, again, thanks a lot, Thomas. Yeah, I think the audience would love it, and I hope they can embark some of the insights and thoughts that you have shared here with us.
I'm looking forward to read their comments as well.
Yes.
What they agree, what they don't agree.
Definitely.
I think we are again it's not carved in stone, right?
Yes.
Our discipline. Even the scope is sometimes a little bit changing, and I think there are very different approaches.
Yes.
Right. And I'm happy to read from everyone.
Yes, fully. So please leave comments, reach out to Thomas or myself. And thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in. And Thomas, thank you again for your insight.
Thank you, Najim, for having me.
It was a pleasure. Thank you.